Good morning, everyone. I'll call the meeting to order at 8:43. And Tracy Ellis, would you please call the roll?
Yes. Roach,
Here.
Olszewski, Kabilius. Here. Clark,
Here.
Brown,
Here.
Estoye,
Did you hear me say here though, Brown?
yes, I did.
Okay,
Thank you.
thanks.
Nunez, Rosner, Sims, Goddard,
Here.
O'Mara, Corsi,
Here.
Henderson,
Here.
Anderson.
Here.
Okay, we have quorum.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone, for your patience. We're going to move into closed session. Can I have a motion to go into closed session?
So moved.
Second.
All right, good. We can hear you on Zoom. And Tracy, would you do a roll call vote, please?
Yes. Roach? Yes. Olszewski, Kabilius.
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Goddard. Corsi?
Yes.
Corsi,
Yes.
Henderson.
Yes.
Okay, we're in closed session.
Elena Anderson is here too.
Oh, I'm sorry. Anderson,
Yes.
my apologies.
All right, thanks for everybody on Zoom. We're going to be a couple of minutes. Those who are here at IMSA, we're going to move over to the N2 room, and we will see you there in a minute. Okay, so we're going to resume the open session of the IMSA Board of Trustees meeting at 10:04. And so I think, do we do another roll call? Would that be?
Just
right?
everyone could go around and say who's here.
Okay, great. Could you start, please?
Kathleen Clark, trustee.
Tracy Ellis, Board Secretary.
Oh, Dawn Robinson, interim president.
Aaron Roach, trustee.
Paula Olszewski-Kabilius, trustee.
And then would the trustees on Zoom identify themselves, please?
Eric Brown, trustee.
Roberto Cursi, trustee.
Loretta Henderson, trustee.
Elena
Ty Goddard.
Go ahead. Elena Anderson, trustee. Ty Goddard, trustee.
Okay, I think that's everyone. Thank you. I just wanted to say a couple of quick things. First, thank you to Kevin and to Bill and Ralph for making this very smooth and easy. Appreciate all the technology. Those of you who are on Zoom can do a hand clapping sign. Also want to say a big thank you to our interim president, Dr. Storm Robinson. Thank you for building such a solid runway for our incoming president, Dr. Glazer. Thank you for stepping into the role. It's during a pandemic, during contract negotiations. Clearly, your love and dedication to IMSA is apparent. Thank you on behalf of the whole board of trustees and the IMSA community.
Thank you. And also my cabinet as well.
Yeah. And I also just wanted to remark that this is our second Board of Trustees meeting in person. We had a board retreat in April, and thanks to Kevin again, who bailed us out with all of the technology. We were able to review then the repopulation plan, and now it's called the Return to Learning and Working Plan. And so thankful to all of the staff and faculty who have put in time to make the plan so robust, so that we're following all of the Illinois Department of Public Health and the Center for Disease Control requirements. The number one priority for the board and for IMSA is the safety of our students, our faculty, our staff, and visitors. There are so many people who are doing heroic work. I also want to say thank you to the PAC, the Parents Advisory Council, and especially President Maria Ramos for hosting the town halls, doing so much extra for transportation for students, connecting the community, making sure there's lots of food involved as well, because that's what teenagers want. So thank you very much to our parents as well. I also want to note that and highlight this, that the National Science Foundation recognized, you see this in our documents for today, National Science Foundation recognized IMSA's own Dr. Adrienne Coleman and wanted to tip the hat to her. IMSA has been doing some amazing things during pandemic. We see the second annual, I can't believe I'm saying this, second annual IMSAloquium done online. And SIR was just an incredible, again, success. 182 students giving presentations, 143 presentations. I really want to, again, tip the hat to Dr. Anger, who is in science, Dr. Duvall, also in science, and Kathy Kuntz in SIR for making that happen a second year in a row. That's really tremendous. I saw, as I read through the documents, the incredible amount of competitions that students are winning. And those take some real serious preparation, thought, and creativity. I also know just from my day job how much time it takes to prepare for lessons that are really powerful, engaging online. So I want to also thank the faculty for dipping into their own personal inner reserves to be able to do that sort of preparation. It takes a lot of learning on their part. We're going to see some of that today in our world language feature item for discussion. The world language department has clearly done some incredible work using educational technology and engaging students, and especially around considering diversity, equity, and inclusion in their culturally responsive pedagogy and anti-racist curriculum. So appreciate that work as well. Looking forward to it. Okay, so at this time, do any trustees here at IMSA or online have any comments? All right, then we will move to our two pieces of board business and our action items. And I think I get to describe the resolution to honor IMSA President Dr. Jose Torres, who has recently retired. Our resolution is there for everyone to read. What I really want to highlight is the paragraph that says, whereas Dr. Torres strengthened IMSA despite two major crises, a statewide budget crisis from 2014 to 2017, and a global COVID-19 pandemic. He's also really advanced IMSA through the IMSA's Operational Excellence Dashboard and the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, as well as his work on equity and excellence policy, and passing legislation to allow non-Illinois students to come to IMSA at some point in time to help the financial status of IMSA. These are incredible accomplishments, and I am very proud as board chair to present this resolution to the board for consideration. Would anybody else like to would any trustees like to make any comments? Okay, could I have a motion to approve the resolution to honor Dr. Torres?
So moved. Second.
And Tracy, could I have a roll call vote, please?
Yes. Roach,
Yes.
Olszewski, Kubilius,
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
Brown, no, he's on.
Yes.
Goddard,
Absolutely, yes.
Coursey,
Yes.
Henderson,
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Wonderful. So the next board action item is the proposal to name Dr. Torres as President Emeritus. And noting that the resolution that the board just approved, I'm very excited to propose that Dr. Torres be a President Emeritus to serve IMSA in his retirement. He's very eager to advance IMSA's mission in coordination with incoming President Dr. Glazer. I want to be really clear that the proposal in the agenda is just a example of possible work. It is not what the board is considering to approve. Today, it is just board is just considering the approval of the status of President Emeritus. Do any trustees want to make any comments at this time?
I just wanna take a minute to congratulate Dr. Torres and to thank him for all these contributions.
Thank you, Dr. Xerxes. Okay, could I have a motion to approve Dr. Torres as President Emeritus?
So moved.
Second,
And Tracy, could you do a roll call vote, please?
Roach,
Yes.
Olszewski, Cabelius.
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Goddard,
Yes.
Dorsey,
yes,
Henderson,
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Thank you. And I'm presenting here to Dr. Torres, who's in absentia, a recognition, a token that says, with our deepest appreciation, we hereby honor Jose M. Torres, PhD, IMSA President, in recognition of your many years of visionary guidance, exceptional leadership, and unconditional commitment serving as President of IMSA from 2014 to 2021. Thank you. And present this to Dr. Torres in May 2021. And I'm eager to share this with him in person. Okay. So our next item of business is our consent agenda. Consent agendas.
Aaron, raises.
Sorry.
B, there's an
B.
item still on action. B,
Mhm.
raises.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. Our next action item is the proposed raises. And so Dr. Robinson, I'll ask you to share this.
Okay. This document right here.
I wouldn't.
Yeah.
Proposed raises.
Storm, I don't think you have to.
Hmm.
You don't have to open the document to speak to it.
Oh, I had spoke. Okay, all right. Okay, so, thank you. This is a proposal for raises, a one-time raise for this year. This will properly, I guess, show appreciation for the work that's being done over the past year, especially over the work that we've done to get ready for a pandemic that we thought was going to be 3 or 4 months old, and now it's into its 13th, 14th month. So I think this is proper due to show gratification for that as well.
If I could, I'd like to also add just a detail of how we approached the raises this year. We have taken the raise amount, and because of the budget uncertainty, we have allocated a small part of the raise to the base, to increase the base salary. And then the remainder of the raise that we would normally give is given in just a one-time lump sum so that we don't increase base salaries, given, too much given the uncertainty about budget. So we split the one raise into two parts.
And I want to say from my experience in attending the town halls, the extra work in order to prepare over the past 14 months during the pandemic, staff have just done an outstanding job. And I'm in real strong support of recognizing that extra work and real high quality work that staff have done. Do any other trustees have any questions about the mechanics of the one-time raises or other comments? Okay, can I have a motion to approve the proposed raises?
So moved. Second.
Okay, and Tracy, could you do a roll call vote, please?
Yes. Let's start. Anderson,
Yes.
Henderson,
Yes.
Dorsey,
Yes.
Goddard,
Yes.
Brown, Brown, Clark,
Yes.
Olszewski, Kubilius,
Yes.
Roach,
Yes.
pass.
Okay, thank you. Thank you to staff for your continued hard work, excellent work. So now we're at the consent agenda, and the consent agenda is proposed as a package, and to a vote is it all together. And we only discuss the consent agenda if a trustee asks 48 hours or more ahead of time to discuss any of the items. So with that, I would ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Okay.
And Tracy, could you do a roll call vote, please?
Yes. Olszewski, Kubilius,
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
Brown, Goddard,
Yes.
Dorsey,
Yes.
Henderson,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
motion passed.
Brown, yes as well, sorry.
Okay, great, thank you. Our next item is in our information discussion, our deep dive on world languages, and very excited to learn more about this. Dr. Robinson?
Yes, so Dr. Comfort Akwaji Anderson and she has the world languages team here. I will ask that you approach that mic that's over to the right side of our facing. Yes, that one right there.
Okay,
Yeah, great.
so thank you, Board of Directors. I am very excited to present the World Languages team. They are going to talk to you about the program reviews from 2011. They have really thought through the work and what they're doing to actually address the recommendations from those reviews. And so you have the documentation that was presented to you. So they literally looked at all the recommendations and provided what they've done specifically to address the recommendations, as well as where they still need to go. One of the conversations that Dr. Jeanette Bartley here, Dean of Academics, and I discussed with the team was to really push them to think specifically about when they say, here's where we're going to go next. There were some situations where they were more general in the way that they addressed that area or what they said they were going to do. For example, they said, we look forward to continuing to seek out partnerships and curricular collaborations from teams in other disciplines. So we pushed them a little bit to think about, okay, what are some specific examples of the kinds of collaboration that you're going to have with other teams? And what do you truly intend to do? So they'll be addressing that. In some instances also, they provided a lot of qualitative examples of things that they've done, but they actually have a lot of quantitative data that they can share with you all. So specifically related to students. So I'm really excited and looking forward to them presenting. Today's a B day, so they're not all here, but there's quite a few of them will be here, and then others will join in as they finish teaching their classes. So I present to you the World Languages team.
Hello, I will start speaking, if that's okay. Hi, I'm Nadia Miskowitz. I teach French at IMSA. So we were recently asked to present our team's work to you. We were asked to examine our team's impact and the value we add for the students of IMSA. Part of IMSA's mission was always to introduce students to new perspectives, challenging preconceived notions, and taking risks outside of their comfort zone. The World Language team is in the unique position of being able to challenge students' understanding of the world and help foster global citizenship and critical thinking skills outside of the classroom. We invite students to redefine success, not as never failing, but as growing from one's mistakes. We create a space where students can build bridges between different cultures, different disciplines, and different modes of communication. We use language as a tool to discover the values that shape our world. We boldly seek new perspectives from other civilizations, and we examine the common human denominator. And I will now let my colleagues highlight the ways that we do that.
Oh, hello, I'm Dr. Mary Zaidama. I teach Spanish here at IMSA. It has been amazing to just jump in right away. This is my first year here, but I want to talk to you a bit about the report we drew up, as well as some ways that we also incorporated quantitative data and our vision for the future. So you'll see in our reports that when we think about the value that our program has on our students, value is very difficult to measure, but we hope to try to highlight that using a lot of examples of artifacts, including informal communication between ourselves and students or parents, the way that we support extracurricular activities. And we also thought, well, we love qualitative data, but we also are a math school. So let's think about numbers. Our problem of practice this year is really focusing on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And even more important than that being a part of our pedagogies and assessment is, well, how are students perceiving this? Because it's one thing for us to, present diversity-based and inclusive and differentiated curriculum. It's another for students to recognize what that is. So in the fall semester, we of our team's teachers implemented a student evaluation survey, and we chose to focus on one particular question, question 11, that asks students to explain how their teacher promoted or explained or utilized diverse perspectives in the context of world languages. We took together all that data to form a baseline. We came up with 214 responses just for that singular question, and we gave a score of 1 to any responses that did talk about diversity, equity, or inclusion with regard to race, ethnicity, socioeconomic class, gender, sexuality, and a score to 0 for those students who said things like, well, diversity, we have PowerPoints. Yeah, videos. So needless to say, those students were trying to elevate their understanding of what diversity is a bit more. Of those 214 results, 114 responses gave us a proportion of about 53% of our students are demonstrating an understanding of what diversity of perspectives actually entails. And so our hope for the future with that is to grow that next year to 63%. That gives us a little bit of wiggle room in the years to come, as well as gives us some ideas about, what are some specific examples of things that we can do to elevate this idea. I will say this year has been a bit of an interesting challenge being online. So one thing we do want to focus on with regard to diversity, equity, and inclusion, for example, is belongingness. Students who have been in this remote environment are thrown a whole set of new challenges in addition to going to a STEM-focused school. So we're hoping to make our implicit diversity a bit more explicit. This is kind of like a metaphor, but like when parents hide vegetables in their kids' food, well, we want those kids to know that they're eating vegetables. And by vegetables, I actually mean diversity. So making things a bit more explicit and really helping them understand what diversity entails. With that, we are hoping to really learn a bit more about mental health initiatives for students. This year in particular has been one in which we want to improve on mental health. We know that there's a wealth of students suffering from depression and anxiety. So what are some things we can do? And so a lot of this year has been about piloting programs with the hope of growing them and expanding them next year. One particular initiative through the counseling center on campus is the Mental Health First Aider Initiative. One member of our team piloted this year, and we're hoping for more next year to be able to incorporate that mental health strategies into our teaching. One of our team members this year focused on an initiative pushed forth and offered by Rich Busby, who helped set up a connection with a STEM-focused school in Mexico for global conversations to have our students connect with others across the globe. So next year we will be incorporating 2 members of our team and 2 members of the bio team to focus on that, really focusing on microbiology, as well as incorporating those conversations that take place in Spanish, as well as we're going to be introducing more languages for that as well. With regard to diversity, especially the organization on campus, BSU, created a diverse curricula subcommittee that is hoping to invite experts in the field to come and give topics of interest to students. One member of our team piloted this past semester, gave a list of possible topics and let students choose, which focuses on the equitable goal of self-control and a sense of control over the curriculum. So we're hoping to expand that even more next year. A few members of our team have made some preliminary collaborations with other disciplines at the school. With our English team, they have incorporated world language units on immigration and social justice. A few have focused on history and fine arts. And with many of our departments are new. So right now our department has 3 new members. Next year we will have 2 new members and 2 second-year teachers who are just chomping at the bit to get to actually meet everybody. So I know it was a little general saying that we look forward to meeting other members of collaboration. That is indeed true, just because we're a bit new, but we're hoping to take what we've already been doing and grow it even further. But we are happy to answer any questions you may have.
I'll invite trustees. I have several things I'd love to ask. I want to defer to other trustees if you have any questions.
Hi, Aaron. I'm sorry, it's Elena. I had problems unmuting. Sorry it took so long. Can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
Yes, go ahead.
Hi. I'm a new trustee, so I'm curious about all of the new teachers in the program. And I'm wondering if there's anything specific about this moment with respect to turnover or the environment with respect to turnover, or this is typical and you may not have that lens given that you're new as well, but I'm just curious.
Well, I'll go ahead and address that question. Something that I didn't mention, I'm sure you read it in the documents, is this team is very new. There had been a lot of turnover prior to me even coming to IMSA. There had been a lot of turnover on the team. And Dr. Zenema, who just presented to you actually, she was hired and started on the first day of school with the students. We had a really hard time even finding folks to hire. So the team is new except for one person who actually experienced or was there when they actually did the program review. The team is really new. So I'm really, really proud of this team. They are very equity minded. And one of the skills and gifts that Dr. Zenema and other Spanish teacher bring to the table is the ability to write curriculum. When they got here, there was no curriculum for them to use. So I'm really, really proud of the work that they're doing. And we hope that the turnover is going to slow down for a while. So that's the situation with the team. They're pretty new.
Other questions from trustees? Thank you, Dr. Klaudji Anderson. Okay, I have about 3 hours of questions because there's just so much fun work that you have done on teaching and learning. This is kind of my wheelhouse, but I'm going to try to limit it to just a few minutes. Really, I just want to acknowledge a few things. I'm a bilingual certified Spanish teacher here in Illinois for over 25 years. And just
Didn't know that.
yes, hablo español, pues muy fluente.
Muy bien.
Gracias. So I really, from my angle, as a world language speaker, I really appreciate what you are doing, especially at an academy that has an M and an S in the acronym. It's really important, especially as, you know, the world is already globalized. And for example, your work with Rich Busby to connect with the STEM school in Mexico is just brilliant. That's the kind of sort of world leadership that IMSA is looking to create, and that kind of connection with our fellow humans in Mexico is fantastic. I also really appreciate the your problem of practice, your inquiry based question, the analysis of your curriculum, especially with ideas about identities. World language is such an excellent venue to do that kind of work. And students who are 15 through 18, they are thinking very deeply about their identity, and world language is a great conduit for that. I really appreciate you doing that. And I saw in your work too about how you're looking to make sure that it is culturally responsive pedagogy. So that's really important too. So I really want to commend you for that, as well as the educational technology that you're using to really engage students. You talked about a sense of belongingness that is so important right now. And that's work that not only you've learned for the pandemic, but also post-pandemic. So really congratulate you on that. I have kind of two groups of questions. One, I was really intrigued around your set of quantitative and qualitative metrics, and would love to hear you talk about what your vision is for that. So if you could transport yourself in time to 2 or 3 years from now, and you've got it all done, and it's put together, and it's really high quality, it's IMSA level, what does that look like? And what does that set of quantitative and qualitative metrics look like that's an IMSA, that's IMSA-ness, that's unique to IMSA? It's not a Peyton High School, it's not a Whitney Young or a Naperville North experience. It's unique to IMSA. And then a second part of that question is, what are the comprehensive set of teaching techniques, assessments, structures that you envision that are making IMSA students perform so well, and that other high schools and colleges should be considering to adapt? So two big questions there, and we'd love to just and it's around vision, right? Like, what do you think about for 2 to 3 years from now?
That's a great question. And like you said, you've got 3 hours worth of questions. So if you want to just talk informally later, I'm happy to answer those. I don't want to take up all of your time. But I'll address, I think, the last question first, just because it's a bit fresher in my mind. So with regard to teaching techniques and strategies, I do a lot of my work. I think you mentioned cultural responsiveness from Gloria Ledson Billings. Working within Tomlinson's differentiation guidelines is a bit more of, I would say, one of my strengths. So one thing I would love to incorporate even more is having those assessments where students have more control over it. And I've utilized 2 examples. I think you'll see a few in the reports, but one example is like a tic-tac-toe board as the homework assignment where students, there are 9 total assignments and students have to choose 3 in a row. They can choose ever 3 they want. There's 9 total different options for them, but they have to do 3 in a row in order to, you know, get the tic-tac-toe board aspect of things. I've been using that a bit more in Q3 and Q4, but I would love to develop a year-long type of assessment with that in mind instead of it just being a one-off. And also to share that with my colleagues as a way to like really incorporate differentiation more and that sense of belonging and sense of control over things. I've also piloted this year and one of my other team members piloted this semester. It's kind of like and I hate to use this term because it's a bit long, but so I need to focus on my elevator speech for this, but it's like a choose your own adventure novel where in order to, let's say, get 15 points, students choose which activities they'd like to do, and each activity is worth a different number of points. So like listening to a podcast episode in the target language would be worth 1 point versus actually preparing a class presentation in front of their peers for a 15-20 minute presentation would be worth like 4 or 5 points. I got the idea from a parenting magazine where kids got grounded, and in order to get ungrounded, they had to do a specific set of chores. So they could very much do the dishes 20 times to get 20 points, or they would have to scrub the bathroom, and that would happen less because that's worth more points. But that kind of like differentiation aspect, I want to grow and expand. And really, I think that is something that is new in the field and that is really guiding the way that formative assessment can go. And I can certainly talk more to the qualitative metric of things, but if any of my other teammates are here and would love to talk about the quantitative metrics, I will get some water real quick while y'all do that.
I can take over from here. Hello, I'm Irina and I'm the Russian teacher. So in terms of the quantitative metric, it's not really a metric. So the reasoning for us doing that is that we started, I think the team has been doing it for a few years, but we looked even more in depth into how to further decolonize the foreign language curricula, because this is something that is overall a trend in the US foreign language education, but there is still a way to go everywhere, right, in the US education in general, and even at IMSA, even though I would say that the current IMSA team is ahead of many, many other places where languages are taught. And we thought that it's a good idea to actually start looking at how our students perceive what we're doing and whether they even see it, because what we noticed, and the reason that prompted us to look closer at the student responses to surveys, was that we noticed that in those responses, they sometimes do not target the question that is being asked. So the survey, the teacher evaluation survey asks, how does your teacher, and I think it asks them to give some examples, promotes diversity in their curricula. And what we see sometimes is that student responses do not target this question. They may be complementary to the teacher, but they nonetheless do not demonstrate that students are actually viewing any diversity or any representation of diversity in the language curricula, because responses may be something like, we both have written material and listening material, which is great and which is what we're doing as well, but this is not what the question is about, and this is not what we are consciously trying to do. So realize that we need not only to actively implement more diversity and more non-colonial approaches in our teaching, but we also need to work on raising awareness of that, because students may have this kind of tunnel vision that they're studying the language, and with the language, often there is this idea of kind of if there is a correct way to speak, then there is kind of some one target language, one target culture, and they may not notice what we're doing. in terms of, that this is also part of the curriculum rather than, some extra elements that serve as sprinkles on the cake of the language learning. So that prompted our work with those student surveys, and that's why we have it as one of the team goals to consciously not only work on including more different cultures, more different social strata and different identities represented in the curriculum, but to work with students so that they would treat it as also part of the course content, rather than we're studying the language here and everything we are actually talking about is not part of what we're doing, if this is somewhat clear. So this is what prompted it, and therefore our vision is that we are able not only to work on our part, but also raise awareness among students, and that will help us, because when students understand what we are doing better, they will be able to offer us more insight into what they may want to see in the curricula, and something that we may not even be able to come up with on our own.
And just to finish with the qualitative, I would say that specifically, Irina kind of mentioned how we are planning on decolonizing things and incorporating diversity, but we're hoping to incorporate more voices of people who are marginalized in the curriculum, Black, Indigenous, people of color, LGBTQIA+ voices, and really try to, instead of focus, and this I think is where it's the IMSA-ness of the curriculum, where we're not just teaching students how to communicate in the language, but we're trying to focus on a curriculum that will have them ask, what problems can you solve based on your learning of the curriculum.
Terrific, thank you. And I really appreciate your willingness to be vulnerable, take those risks by asking students for feedback via surveys. That gives you that internal feedback loop that allows you to constantly improve. So kudos to you for taking that plunge as a department. My other big question is much simpler. It's simply how can IMSA support you? What's your wish list? And I know you mentioned that working on culturally responsive pedagogy is your problem of practice. How can we support that?
Wow, oh my goodness, that's a great question. I think, so I would say the concept of diversity, equity, and inclusion is becoming so much more important to focus on. And I would say the whole faculty, in order for us to really dive into equity, we would love to see specifics. I do, like I said, the tic-tac-toe board or the choose your own demonstration and mastery, but we would absolutely love to see even more ways that equity, inclusion, and diversity is being incorporated into different disciplines, different courses. For the global conversations, I'm sure that we would love to be able to incorporate STEM conversations with each of our languages. And that way we can grow from the singular collaboration with Spanish speakers into all the languages that are featured in our department, and really help students who, they're coming to IMSA to really focus on STEM. So to incorporate those conversations across languages, I think would be a great support for us. But do any of my other team have other ideas?
Sure. I would add that one major way you could support us is by continuing to see the diversity of offering of languages that we propose here at IMSA as a wealth and an asset, rather than any other way.
So may I just add to the response that has been provided by the team? I just want the board to know that we have a variety of different ways that we're trying to support the teachers. And of course, we appreciate your support. One of the things that we're doing is having the teams, you heard them talk about the problem of practice. It's very important for us to really get down to that level where we're not just, so we have a goal of course, ensuring that we're looking at our work through a lens of equity, but more specifically, what is our problem of practice? For example, as a world languages team. And so one of the things that the teams are doing is sharing with us and us in the principal's office, Dr. Badley and I in particular, working with the teams and looking at their goals. So they share their goals, they think about problems of practice, and then we do what we call the equity cycles, 30 days. We focus on a specific problem of practice. That got interrupted a little bit, of course, because of COVID and all the things we were doing this year. But we're going to continue to support teachers in doing that, because in that way, like they're talking about decolonization and disrupting certain inequities or things that are happening that are not supporting our students. We need to do that because that way, formatively, we can actually create the change that we want to see. And then I also want to add that there's a lot of things that my colleague, Ms. Thomas, is leading when it comes to the global initiatives. The things that are happening there that are also helping with the curriculum. So we're looking at it in a comprehensive way, and we so appreciate everything that the board is doing to support us. So we'll continue to learn and grow. Again, the work of equity is not just talking about it, it's thinking about what does that look like? So putting equity into action, that's one of the things that we're going to be truly focusing on and asking for your support. So, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Dr. Akwaji Anderson, do we have data, like is there data that shows that our students of color are gravitating towards certain classes in foreign languages or not taking certain classes? Do we have a pattern of course taking that indicates some kind of inequity?
We will be looking at that,
Okay.
but we have not specifically
Or
gathered.
preference. I mean, I don't know. I just wanted to know if, are all the kids required to take a foreign language?
Yes, for graduation requirements, yes.
2 years? 2 years.
That's correct, yes. And I will say, this is a bias, but Spanish is very popular for some reason.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Well, it'd be that's what I want to learn. I
Yeah.
understand that. Okay, I just wondered.
Yeah,
Thank
I
you.
think like one interesting data point would be how many IMSA students graduate with a seal of biliteracy. I mean, California is graduating about 50,000 per year. They're the nation leader. IMSA can be another leader in Illinois, who's only graduating about 5,000 per year. So that's a great opportunity.
Thank you for the suggestion, because
Yeah.
that's one of the things that we have not pursued yet. And this year in the fall, we are working on accreditation. And so I'm pretty sure that a conversation about biliteracy is going to come up, and that's something that we can very easily pursue.
Perfect.
Yep.
Trustees on Zoom, I want to speak.
Yes, thank you. I got a comment and a question. So first of all, thank you so very much for the efforts that you're making to bring these learning opportunities to IMSA students. I think that is tremendous value for them. So I have a very basic question that is coming to my mind based upon the questions that were posted before, but thinking about the vision or the future. So I am relatively new to the board, and I don't know with clarity the curricular structure and the space in which language is embedded into the curriculum in terms of requirements or electives. But I'm wondering if you can elaborate on whether there is a space or not within the curriculum for a student to have more than one language exposure. So we typically think in terms of bilingual, going from monolingual to bilingual, but at the age and the space that the students have an IMSA to learn, I think that in my mind, it would be ideal if many of them would become multilingual rather than just bilingual. But I don't know whether there are, time and space constraints within the curriculum for them to explore more than one foreign language. Thank you.
So typically, students, of course, are placed in a certain language and they take that language. Some students end up with more than one language, but most of the time they'll take one language. So it's not something that we have typically done. And so I think us being IMSA, that's part of innovation. And so, and also like Chairman Roche said earlier, when you're looking at biliteracy, those are the kinds of things that you look at, not the traditional, you take 1 year of this language, then you're done. It's looking at students having the opportunity to look at multiple languages. In fact, Dr. Bali and I have been really working hard on looking at the learning opportunities through the lens of equity. And that's one of the conversations that, that we had to think about how could we provide students with opportunities to take more than one language. And of course, our students have sent me emails and asked those questions. So that's something that we're going to be looking into, but it's not typical.
Thank you.
Any other trustees have any comments here or on Zoom? My last, I guess, idea is just to suggest that world language, you clearly have some great sets of assessments that give you qualitative and quantitative feedback about both outcomes as well as processes. You also have clearly a robust growing set of curriculum and then strong ways to evaluate both curriculum and instruction. What I would encourage you to consider is looking at something like a 3-year plan that says, here's where we want to be, and with some really clear outcomes, both on the student learning outcomes as well as the teaching and learning parts, so that you can then backwards map a plan that over the next 3 years will get you there. It's reasonable, but has that ambition that you have in your hearts as well as what IMSA expects. I think there's some really exciting things here, and I know the board is really appreciative of what you're doing to push students and also develop your own teaching prowess, and always through the inequity lens. So really want to appreciate World Language Department, Dr. Kwaji Anderson, for comments today. Is there anything that you wanted to end with from the department or Dr. Kwaji Anderson?
I just wanted to add, thank you for what you just said about assessment. One of the things that the department has been really working on, they are actually looking at, and this is, we're going to be bringing to the board a proposal about competency-based assessment. And this team has actually been practicing some of that. And so we're looking forward to bringing that proposal forward and then doing some piloting. So I just wanted to throw that in. And thank you so much for listening to us today and all the questions that you asked and the suggestions that we made. We're going to take those very seriously. Team, is there anything else you want to share with the board before we end?
Nothing from me, but just thank you for letting us present to you today. And if you have more questions, you know where to find me.
All right, muchísimas gracias, merci, and spasiba, and that's the extent of my Russian.
Wow.
All right, so our next item on our agenda is the report of the president, Dr. Robinson.
Thank you. First of all, let me say thank you to the board, you and as well as the board, for appointing me interim president for these fast-moving but important 2 months that we have at the end of the school year. Even though the appointment falls on me personally, it is not done with me inside of a silo. I do have my colleagues, Tracy Ellis, Dr. Kwaji Anderson, Katie Berger, and Alexis Thomas to support me and back me in all of the things that we're doing. Hopefully that's it. Did I miss anybody? No, I got everybody. And also, I want to say one area of thanks needs to go to a section of this academy that often gets mislooked and doesn't get recognized, and that's the facilities. For the facilities, they started setting this board meeting up days ago and making sure everything is okay. And they've been at our service to provide this unique experience, this once in a lifetime experience, I guess. So I will share with you my report. My report first starts off with the dashboard. As the dashboard has been submitted for your review of our metrics that we have achieved for our dashboard definitions. I've also outlined the communication strategy that we've talked about, Dr. Roche, for this time period, so that we can make sure that we are communicating, which leads into those 3 points that I think it was May 3rd, that I was really standing on, and I'm really just pushing onwards to. One is the full repopulation, return to learn and work in the fall, and that's what we're working feverishly to go ahead and make that a reality. Alexis Thomas has spearheaded the Return to Learn and Work Committee, which gets input from all of the members of the community, even including the parents as well. So we are working very feverishly to get that and make that a reality, so that when we are here in August, classrooms are full and teachers are back, and we are doing everything face to face. Also, we are looking at this last month of school to make sure that it's most positive for the students. We have senior week coming up in almost 2 weeks, and that's going to be an awesome experience for the seniors to get that, what it feels like to be here, get to see everybody again as one, and really celebrate their achieving of their high school experience and the culmination of the high school experience in such a challenging time. So we are really trying to make sure that we are very positive in creating that atmosphere. And of course, we're going to continue the work that equity work that Dr. Torres has started. That will never, and I wouldn't say that each one of them have separate weights, but that is always forefront of our mind. So that's something that I will always continue to push forward. Other things that I'd like to highlight there is that we did have a collaboration. As you see, even though that the pandemic has been very constraining in some respects, but in some respects, it's given us an opportunity to really be innovative. Our admissions reached out to the Center for Teaching and Learning from the Educator Development side and the State Student Initiative side, and created a Survey of Science course, which is a high school type experience course that students who come to IMSA are usually go to other places to take this course. We actually got together, put our minds together, and put on a great course, which covered physics, biology, and chemistry. I'll say that one last because that's my least favorite. But so it's an 18-week long experience, and you will see the number of students that we had in that experience there. With that, the other things are there for your information, as well as the other leadership reports from the other members of the cabinet, and we submit this as information. Thank you.
Any questions from trustees or comments for Dr. Robinson? Well, I just want to say thank you for the communication outline that you have. I think that's really strong. And also wanted just to congratulate you on being a top 100 visionaries in education.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move next to our treasurer's report. And I think Kimberly Correo is online.
Good morning, everybody. Happy Wednesday. The treasurer's report that was provided in advance of this meeting reports our financial operating results through the end of April. Right now, I'm projecting a modest surplus, operating surplus for the academy. I'm also estimating that we will lapse $363,000 or so in our EAF appropriation. As always, between now and the end of June, I'll be keeping my eye on things and trying to do the best I can to make sure we're using that EAF appropriation as smartly and efficiently as possible. And when there are instances where we can use EAF over another fund where it's appropriate, we will seek to do so. Cash reserves at the end of April were about 5.6 million, almost 5.7. And grant funding report, again, this year we have a little bit more in government grants than private grants. And the details of all of that is in the grant funding report. And that concludes my formal presentation. Happy to answer any questions that anyone has.
Funding that went to schools. So like ESSER funding, there was some CARES funding.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the first part of the question.
Could you remind us if IMSA qualified for any of the COVID funding that went to schools?
IMSA received from the Governor's Emergency Relief Fund, it's GEAR for short, we received $250,000 specifically to support technology in support of more of our CLED students, but just to support the online environment during COVID. And that is, it is CARES money that came to the state of Illinois and then it was up to the governor as to how he carved it up as part of his emergency relief funding. So it was federal funds, $250,000, and that is in the grant funding report as well.
Do we qualify for any of the ESSER funds?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. Can we ask ISB if we qualify for them? ESSER?
Yes, we can. Can you tell me more about that?
Yeah, why don't I forward you some information? That
Sure.
might be the fastest way to do it. But there's millions of dollars are going through the state.
The challenge with IMSA is that we're not K through 12, we're higher ed, but then we're also not higher ed.
Exactly.
So,
that's why I think asking might maybe there's some funds that are earmarked that we could pull from if we ask.
Right.
If we don't ask, I'm sure they would be happy to give it to somebody else.
Yep, happy to
I'll
look into
forward
it.
you a note with some high level overview of it.
Thank
I
you.
think that's a really good point because from what I know, IMSA is not getting nearly as much as what a typical educational institution would receive because it's in this nether world between K-12 and higher ed. So that might be worth pushing.
Yep, I'll work with the cabinet on that. I'll see what I can find out. And
Really have one quick question about your highlights. The net surplus before debt service, and then there's debt service. You automatically try to make the net surplus a certain amount so that then debt service can be pulled from that, or is that just sort of coincidental?
I just highlight that specifically for the board because having debt service is newer to IMSA. That's the energy saving, the ESOP, I had ESOPs on my mind. When we replaced the boiler and the 15-year loan we got to replace it. So that debt service, certainly IMSA wants to not have to go into operating loss to pay that debt service. So our goal would always be to have a completely balanced budget, including that debt service payment every year. So what I'm reporting to you is the way I see it's going to shake out. When we do our budget every year, we're always trying to at least break even with our operating surplus after debt service.
Okay, got it. So you intentionally try to keep it above the 264,000 so that gets deducted from whatever the surplus is remaining.
Correct. We're using our local fund to pay that. And if we didn't have enough of an operating surplus, then we would be using IMSA reserves.
Okay, great. Well, big kudos to you to get this such a small number, especially with all of the challenges of purchasing and state procurement.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. We're going to move on to our liaison reports. Just a reminder that we really value our reports from our liaisons. We've read your reports and really ask that you highlight one or two things that you think are really important for the board to hear about. And our first liaison report is already up, Mike. He is ready. Thank you, Dr. Eric Redberg. Good to see you in person.
Good to see you in person too. And you know, as we approach the end of a uniquely challenging year, to cite IMSA's legislative mandate, for all of us, there's been some challenges and tensions within the institution, within the community. I do just want to take time to acknowledge how grateful the faculty is for the work of so many people around the institution. I see Alexis and the Transition Task Force, or the Repopulation Task Force, and Return to Work and Learn Task Force working so hard. I see Storm stepping into an exceptionally challenging position at an exceptionally challenging time. I see Aaron, supporting the institution in all sorts of ways as he works to lead his own school through the pandemic. I see IMSA staff like Bill and Kevin and Irma and Kevin Cusey, making these things happen and supporting our students and keeping the building safe. I see parents coming to advocate for their students. I've been coming in about once a week since spring break, and I talked to a couple of parents with bullhorns once, and I really am grateful for the advocacy they're doing on behalf of their students. In my report this time, for the third time during the pandemic, I sort of did an omnibus compilation of exciting things I see happening with teaching and learning at IMSA. I know it's long, and I did attach it as an appendix, but I do encourage board members to sample it just to get a sense of some of the rich and varied learning experiences that happen here. Whenever I feel down, I take a look at the work that my colleagues and their students are doing, and I get really excited. And I want to end by acknowledging the hard work of IMSA students. I can't see the Zoom screen except for these 6 on the side, but I want to acknowledge all IMSA students, and especially the class of 2021, by way of acknowledging our outgoing student council president, Eric Pan, a student who I got to teach 3 times at IMSA. My favorite Eric story is that in the experimental poetry class this fall, I asked students to pick a poem by some poet by way of introducing themselves. And Eric picked a poem by Stephanie Pace Marshall. And I think Eric, like so many of his classmates, only got to spend 15 months on this campus, but he has shaped the place. He's worked to make his classmates' lives better. And his imprint is on IMSA, as are all of his classmates. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Redberg. Very heartfelt. Our next liaison is from Eric Hahn, our student council president. Are you online? All right, well, I wanted to congratulate Eric in person, or at least via Zoom, on doing exactly what Dr. Redberg said. I want to say congratulations on upcoming graduation, as well as the work on the anti-hate work by students, especially the Asian American Pacific Islander leadership. So congratulations to Eric Pan, and look forward to working with our next student council president next year. Our next liaison is from our parent, PAC, Maria Ramos.
Hello, everybody, and thank you for having me today. Just wanted to give a thank you to all of the parent volunteers who have helped to make the PAC what it was this past year. Even with all of the different things happening this year, we were still able to accomplish a lot. So just want to thank all the parent volunteers, and especially to the parents of seniors who we wish the very best for them and their students. So a couple of weeks ago, we did have a town hall, as Dr. Roach has mentioned. And one of the things parents have been asking for is for more communication between the academy and parents. And we're happy to host and moderate that town hall. And also hope to continue in that partnership of keeping the lines of communication open between all the parties. And wanted to also give a special thank you to the guests who participated, including Dr. Roche. So thank you, and Dr. Lynn Himes, as well as Dr. Robinson, Ms. Berger, Ms. Tracy Ellis, and also to Dr. Akwaji Anderson. So again, thank you for that. We were able to allow for parents to ask questions that they had and get information directly from the sources that could provide that information to them. So again, thank you for all of that.
Thank you, Ms. Ramos, and congratulations on being reelected to the Parent Association Council, and look forward to working with you next year. The work that you did to host and organize the town hall was really outstanding, and appreciate that of you and the other parents. Our next liaison report is from our alumni. That's Stephen Page. All right, we have the liaison report from the alumni, and our last liaison report is from the IMSA Fund Board, Jacob Plummer, and I'm guessing he is not online because his wife just had their baby a few weeks ago, so really excited for all three of them in Texas. And I enjoyed talking with Jacob Plummer about once a month as part of building a connection between the IMSA Board of Trustees and the IMSA Fund Board. I want to just highlight the Fund Board's endowment campaign. As we read in the liaison report, it's already received some substantial seed money to endow the Promise program of IMSA. And anybody who is interested in contributing can do that by just going to imsa.edu and press donate. It's so easy. You take your money very easily. Thanks to all of our liaisons. Well, at this time, we have several folks who would like to make public comment. So I'll invite them to come to the microphone, or if they're on Zoom. I think there's one parent who's going to be speaking on Zoom. So the board is here to listen to public participation. We will not respond, but we are going to acknowledge and listen very carefully. So first is Robin Abend, and then you're going to tell me if I pronounced your last name correctly.
That works. It's Abend.
Abend.
German for night. So guten Abend. So good morning, I should say. My name is Robin Abend, and I am the parent of a graduating IMSA senior. So last Thursday, I dusted off my personal stationery set and my seldom used stamps, and I penned 3 short letters to the board chair and to each vice chair. I popped them into the mail on Thursday around noon, and I'm curious to know if the 3 of you have received these today, given that you're here on campus.
Not yet.
Okay, so I sent these because, as it turns out, according to IMSA's website, the way to actually initiate conversation with board members is by sending a letter in the US mail to an individual, care of IMSA, 1500 Sullivan Road, Aurora, Illinois, 60506. I sent those letters last week just to illustrate how slow and outdated that process is and to advocate for its revision. In fact, I'm here today to ask that IMSA revise a number of its practices to ensure greater public access to the Board of Trustees. It's time we join the 21st century. So I want to give you a couple of suggestions on how to do that. First, please set up a general email address such as board@imsa.edu to serve as a space to collect and process comments and requests. Multiple board members should be able to see the contents of this inbox. Next, please be more transparent about the public comment process at board meetings. It has taken my fellow parents here today and me months to figure out how to successfully make public comment at an IMSA board meeting. We don't have enough information when we come into the academy to begin with. And another part of the reason for this is that the timeline and the procedures for doing so are buried deep inside the policy manual hosted on board docs. Every other school board I have recently Googled features its public comment policy and procedures in a prominent position on the board website, even universities like UIUC. It's time that IMSA join their ranks by posting its policies and procedures as other institutions do for the sake of transparency. I would also assert that they should accompany any list of the calendar of meetings for the year. In addition, public comment requests need to be directed to a dedicated online portal or a dedicated email account, such as the board@imsa.edu account I prescribed earlier. Currently, according to policy, requests must be sent to the board secretary, but nowhere on the school's website does it specify who the board secretary is. It was only in talking with parents that I learned that Tracy Ellis serves as the board secretary, so requests should be emailed to her. Tracy Ellis is also IMSA's Chief Human Resources Officer, Chief Equity Officer, and Chief Legal Officer. I imagine that her personal work email is quite vibrant and busy. So I fail to understand why she is receiving public comment requests commingled with her other work. Shouldn't these be going to a dedicated place? Finally, I'd like to advocate for continued public access to future board meetings. IMSA's board meetings are governed by the Open Meetings Act, and as such, they are open to the public, period. Nowadays, school districts and universities across the state of Illinois either live stream their in-person board meetings or, as during COVID, conduct them via Zoom. This has become standard operating procedure, so I am concerned when I see a comment like the one about today's meeting. Quoted from board docs, it says, IMSA is now resuming in-person board meetings. For this meeting only, we will simultaneously conduct the meeting in person and via Zoom, end quote. This concerns me because a large group of IMSA's stakeholders, its 1,100 parents, have come to expect these meetings to be just as accessible to the ones in their local communities. A virtual option is imperative today to remain in compliance with the Open Meetings Act. I am sure that as the board and the administration prepares to enter the new year, beginning in July, there will be a number of items that are going to be needing your attention. But I ask that you include what I have addressed here in making those plans. Thank you so much for your time. It was great to be here.
Thank you for coming today, and thank you for your thoughtful suggestions.
Hi, I'm Missy Graff, and I have a rising senior. As a parent of a student that has done 14 months in the den, losing 2 tennis seasons, a soccer season, as well as last spring break spent quarantining for repopulation that never materialized. And I realized a 10-year goes longer than the last 13 months, but personally, I'm disappointed of the extra honor bestowed upon Dr. Torres over and above his generous pension, which will be more than 4 times what my firefighter husband will get after 20 plus years of service. Considering that he ended his tenure with the teachers and RCs feeling the need after 30 years of unionizing says it all, not to mention the fact that the kids never got to repopulate and other schools have found a way to reopen. But why I'm really here is to read a petition that was written by parents after the failed repopulation and currently is signed by 167 people. I realize that some of the statements are dated, but it reads as follows. Dear IMSA board members, administration, teachers, and staff. IMSA students have been studying from home since the beginning of the pandemic, over 13 months. Most colleges reopened 7 months ago. Some boarding schools in the area never even closed. Yet our students remain at home, hunched over computers in their rooms. At a recent PAC Zoom meeting, frustrated parents asked point blank whether IMSA is going to open in the fall. This should have been an easy question to answer with a simple, unequivocal yes. Instead, several IMSA administrators talked around this question without ever answering it, and the PAC then ended the call before parents could press administrators for definitive answers. This non-answer is typical of the administrators' communication over the last year. Administrators dance around questions. if they are not ignoring parents' emails altogether. The union's approach to reopening is equally abhorrent. On this same call, Dr. Hancock claimed that teachers and RCs want students to return to school when it's safe for the students. This is a dishonest argument. Several hundred families prepared to send their students back to IMSA this spring, clearly satisfied with the safety measures IMSA had taken. Parents certainly never authorized union to speak on their child's behalf, and the union has no business using feigned concern about our children's safety as an excuse to stop the school from reopening. Parents will have the final word on their child's safety, not the union. Parents are deeply concerned that the finger pointing we saw on this call is a symptom of a much bigger problem. Both the union and administration have circulated timelines, each blaming each other for not responding in a timely fashion. It is clear from these timelines that both parties are at fault. The administration appears to have ignored requests from the union for months. At the same time, the union appears to have sandbagged the administration with a report from a purported expert, which was only obtained in March. These dueling timelines paint a picture of a school in crisis and of a working environment that has become so difficult that the purported adults in the room can't even provide the courtesy of responding to each other's emails. All of this has shaken our faith in IMSA. Our students worked hard for years to get into IMSA, excited not only because IMSA offers advanced math and science classes, but also because it offered a boarding school experience where the students could build relationships with others. Our children have already missed nearly half of the 3 years we expected them to spend at IMSA, are missing an entire semester of grades, which are critical to their acceptance at colleges. And right now, administrators cannot even say whether IMSA will be open for in-person learning in the fall. These are stats for current juniors. Many are seriously considering pulling their children from IMSA and sending them to a different school. Most have no interest in subjecting their child to another minute of online classes. Most parents have no interest in sending their child to IMSA to just take classes in a dorm room. IMSA's campus reopening is long overdue. So 160 parents signed seeking a commitment from IMSA management to repopulate campus in fall 2021 and ask management to provide transparency and timely progress reports to all stakeholders via IMSA's website. To that end, we specifically request the following. 1, IMSA immediately affirm an unqualified, unequivocal commitment to reopening the campus in the fall with a full commitment to in-person classes. 2, to prioritize weekly bargaining sessions with unions and prioritize issues related to repopulation. 3, to ensure the fall 2021 Return to Teaching and Learning Committee has the resources and support it needs. 4, release the fall repopulation plan no later than July 1st, 2021. 5, create a new fall 2021 repopulation dashboard on IMSA's website that regularly summarizes progress and setbacks of collective bargaining sessions with the teachers union and RCs union, as well as progress of the fall 2021 Return to Teaching and Learning Committee, i.e. weekly summaries of meetings from previous week. Many parents need to know IMSA's answers on this immediately so that we can make alternative arrangements for our students' education if IMSA is not committed to reopening. Signed, IMSA parents.
Thank you for coming today. Is
Heather Cianciolo?
I'm here. I'm on the Zoom. Are you able to hear me?
yes, go ahead.
Okay, great. Good morning. I appreciate this opportunity to address the board today. I'm the parent of a rising junior. I'm also a teacher, not at IMSA. But I speak to you today as a member of the greater IMSA community. And I want to start by saying that I was personally against repopulation. And so you might think that when I was watching Dr. Torres's announcement of the cancellation of repopulation, I think that was last month, you might think I was overjoyed. And to the contrary, I was actually found the experience deeply painful, because what I heard was Dr. Torres basically throwing teachers and RCs under the bus and blaming them for everything that had occurred up until that point. It was deeply unsettling at the time. I was dismayed to see it continue when he later in an announcement painted the RCs as a danger, I believe he said, to our IMSA students. And furthermore, at later a town hall and as recently as the April PAC meeting, I then heard Dr. Himes and other administration members continue this disparaging language about teachers and RCs. You can't claim to be partners with teachers in one breath and malign them in the next. You can't get up on stage and praise them for their heroic efforts while you work to undermine them behind the scenes. And I'm coming here today because this really does need to change. You've forgotten that many of IMSA's parents are also teachers. And when you defame and express disdain toward the teachers and the RCs who have been the reason that our children have had the excellent education that they've had this year. When you do that, we feel that personally. And a lot of the teachers are already getting this message from their own community members. It's particularly hurtful knowing how many of you, our trustees, are also educators. Those of us who have served on school boards, I am one of them, also understand that the IMSA president is the board's designee. This board has empowered Dr. Torres, Mr. Himes, various chiefs, and when those people use demeaning language, it is as if the board itself is using that language. Ultimately, the trustees are responsible for that message and for that language and for the actions of these people. In all of this finger pointing that we've experienced, we have yet to hear the board take responsibility for its own role in the repopulation debacle. And I would suggest that it goes further back than that the deterioration of working conditions that had to preclude the formation of 2 unions, which is really hard to do and takes a long time, that happened for the first time in 30 years. Teacher working conditions are student learning conditions. And at IMSA, there are also student living conditions. There is a divisiveness and a mistrust that has led us to today. And we have reached an inflection point, what the educators on stage will recognize as a teaching moment. Now, I teach math. I teach that mistakes are absolutely necessary for growth. You cannot have one without the other, and I firmly believe that. So my invitation to our trustees today is to take this opportunity to acknowledge your mistakes, and in order to fix them, change the behavior and the thinking that led to those errors, because that's what we do in the classroom. So hiring Dr. Glazer was an excellent first step. I actually do believe that he will help lead a culture change that's so desperately needed at IMSA at this point, but he can't do it without this board fulfilling its oversight role. Even when things appear to be going well, it's critically important that the board exercise this responsibility. That means not accepting the word of the president as gospel. It means trusting but verifying. And you have to do that by getting out in the community, making it easier for people to contact you and connect with you. The people who appeared at this public meeting today are in a very privileged minority in that we have the time to dedicate midweek to come here and show up on Zoom. It's going to be fewer if these meetings are in person. Not even our PAC Council can claim to represent all the parents. It's also limited in its representation. And Ms. Abend has pointed out so many ways that the board needs to re-examine its own policies to enable more members of the public to engage with it. But most importantly, from this day forward, the board has to start treating the parents, the teachers, the RCs, and the community as partners, not as adversaries, in words and in action. This is key for reestablishing the trust that has been lost, because without that trust, IMSA is sunk, and we need IMSA. You've heard from parents who are saying they're going to pull their kids and take them back to their home schools, and it's great that they have that option. My kid, we're committed to staying, even though he comes from a home high school. I'm not here to talk about my kid. I'm here to talk about all the other kids whose parents can't be here today, for whom IMSA is the only option that they have. They have no backup plan. IMSA is their one opportunity to achieve their full potential. Many of these kids are from marginalized communities. These students, present and future, are depending on you, the board, to bring your full energy to this endeavor. So I invite you today to take advantage of this learning opportunity. Show us through your language and actions that you are worthy of our trust. And if you do that, I firmly believe that our IMSA community moving forward is going to be better, is going to grow, and that we will be unstoppable. Thank you.
Thank you for taking the time and comments. Our next invites Cameron Nelson.
Good morning. My name is Cameron Nelson. I'm a parent of a rising senior here at IMSA. I'm also an elected school board member serving my second term here in Illinois. I know a little bit of what you guys do, but I'm here today because over the past year, I've become increasingly concerned that there are problems at IMSA here above and beyond the reopening debacle. Now, I'm on the outside looking in, and I don't know what led to all this, but I've seen in the past few weeks a couple red flags. And so my goal here today is to persuade the board that to the extent you think everything is going fine, you need to listen. It's not going fine. The first red flag was I attended a call a few weeks ago, and which devolved into essentially the union yelling at the administration and the administration saying nothing about reopening. I found both parties' behavior abhorrent. First of all, the union blaming reopening on filters and because they're concerned about the safety of my kid is silly. I decided to send my kid. I didn't care about HEPA filters. And the fact that the administration sat there and said nothing, giving no sense of confidence to the parents listening on the call, was also an embarrassment. But I've been around long enough to know that this is probably not a dispute over HEPA filters. And that's really the major concern here. What that call told me, as someone who's an experienced school board member, is that the culture and climate at IMSA has degraded to the point that adults can't agree on anything. There is absolutely no excuse for discussion about HEPA filters to be blowing up a day before repopulation was supposed to open. Parents have received a barrage of emails where the union administration have been pointing fingers at each other. And I believe the 160 signatures on the petition submitted to the board today is evidence that the parents are unanimous in that you're all at fault. The fact that the administration and the teachers are having this fight in public just shows that relationships have already been damaged. And so to the extent the board thinks that everything is moving fine, I speak from experience. It takes years to fix these relationships, and that work has to start immediately because the problem already exists and it's not going to vanish. I encountered a second red flag. Now, again, I don't know the relationships, personalities, and inner workings of the school so well that I could say, here's your problem. Okay, only you can do that. But there are some red flags. At the March 10th, 2021 IMSA administration, IMSA board meeting, the administration presented a graph. This was in the history deep dive discussion. There was a graph of CWRA plus test scores. What the graph showed was that students made roughly the same growth from sophomore year to senior year, except for African American and 2 or more race students. And then that was presented both in writing and orally to the board as we're making great progress on diversity. That's a huge red flag. And here's why. The graph does not show that IMSA is on the right path, which is the language used in the meeting prep materials. IMSA's goal should be to get all students to a high level of performance, regardless of where they come in. I understood that to be IMSA's goal when my student enrolled here last year. But that graph shows that only 2 subgroups of students showed higher growth and the other 3 didn't. And so for an administrator to come up here and say, well, this is proof of great progress, the problem is what they're also saying is we only care about these students and not those students. That's not okay. That's not what equity means. That's not what diversity and inclusion means. No one on the board called that out. The other problem with that approach is it's unclear whether the CWRA test scores can be used to infer anything. Later on in the meeting, there was a discussion about how CWRA test scores have fallen. So when you present 1 year of data and you look at growth, for all we know, if all those scores are substantially lower than last year's, and the so-called growth we're looking at is meaningless. This is a very, very superficial approach to one, analyzing data, and two, to equity. If one of our students turned in this graph and that statement, I'm confident, if my student brought that to me and said he was submitting this as an assignment, I would tell him to go back to the drawing board. I'm fairly confident if they turn it in as homework, they would get a D. But that superficial, unserious analysis tells me that the culture in the school is that they don't want to have real conversations around equity. We just want to have a superficial conversation to show we did the work. And it's another red flag that things are not moving as smoothly as the first half of this meeting seemed to present. Finally, the third red flag I've noticed in looking over board materials is there was a meeting April 14th discussing a mastery-based learning policy. And in those documents, there was a proposal for what's called a mastery transcript. Now, I don't profess to be an expert on that. It's a new concept to me. From what I read, though, it looks like a rather experimental idea in presenting transcripts to colleges. There's no video of the meeting, which I find troubling. It was a public meeting. There are videos of other meetings. I haven't seen any explanation why there's no video of that one. So I don't know what the substantive discussion you had on it. But this is frankly the kind of thing, this is another good example of nothing's working right. If IMSA is considering changing to essentially an experimental transcript, that's something parents would be very interested to hear about, and it would have very significant concerns about. It's their students getting into college that matters. That's not an executive committee meeting topic. That's a topic that should be discussed with parents first. Not only was it never discussed with parents, and I'm pretty sure most parents have no idea it's being discussed, but as it stands right now, nobody can even tell what the board's position is on it because there's no video of the meeting and no minutes. And this was something that occurred over a month ago. So that's another red flag. Culture and climate are important, and they are, you can't run this school while grinding everyone into dust. And I think you have a lot of parents who are extremely frustrated and feel like the IMSA administration is just running off and doing things and doesn't really care what they have to say. I think a lot of parents are frustrated about having emails ignored. I think a lot of parents are frustrated that the board is unavailable generally to speak to at all. And I think the board needs to, if it hasn't figured this out already, figure out what's wrong and get to work fixing it. Because if it doesn't, you are going to lose parents this fall. They're going to leave. I've talked to parents who are, they're out the door. And frankly, you know, this board should be embarrassed by that.
Thank you, Mr. Nelson. Appreciate your coming today and your comments.
Philip Nagel withdrew.
The last,
Philip
okay.
Nagel withdrew.
And how about
Kathleen O'Hare?
Yes, good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, please go ahead.
Good morning. This is Kathleen O'Hara. I'm the parent of a current junior Shmen and an 8th grader who's been offered entrance to the IMSA class of 2025, as well as 2 other younger children. I'm a communicator by nature, and by profession, I'm a clinical psychologist with a specialty niche working with twice exceptional teens. As a staunch advocate for gifted education, I had recommended IMSA for nearly 20 years before my own experience as a parent. This past year, I volunteered as an IMSA Region 9 parent representative and as a PAC academic co-chair. By a bit of background, I was reared by a 2-teacher household. My parents each taught in public school for over 30 years. I have utmost respect for the teacher's voice as much as the parent's voice, having heard about Board of Ed meetings extending well into the night as a young student myself. Today, I'm addressing the board on a long overdue fashion under the auspicious topic of public comment. And interestingly, I did not discuss my comment with Ms. Abend, though our themes are quite similar today. I settled on this topic because this is actually my 3rd attempt to make public comment. The first was in September 2020, when I missed the seemingly arbitrary 48-hour deadline and learned of it then only via email from Tracy Ellis, unaware of the language of policy BDD paragraph 6, hereafter policy BDD. My second attempt was in November of 2020 when I followed the odd suggestion to utilize public comment via writing a summary statement under the PAC President's Report, so named as the seat at the table notion. That somewhat contested final draft can be found in PAC Liaison Report Academic Committee paragraph, so named with myself as denoted co-author in Board Docs November 18th, 2020. What I saw in November was really quite simple: an email address to reach you as trustees, such as @IMSA Board of Trustees, rather than a snail mail address with which to correspond, and facility with which to address the agenda for board docs rather than a fishing expedition. As of today's date, I'm seeking not only improvements in the current board policy BDD as written, but the end of the perception of censoring of parents' views, and for the first time, some real understanding of the Open Meetings Act as applied in your unique policy across the entire state, recognizing the majority of stakeholders in your pillars are unable to come to a board meeting on Wednesday morning, and their rights to communicate to you appointed officials, regardless of the proximity to the boardroom where it happens. I would like to see a rewriting, reconsideration, and ideally an overhaul of board policy BDD. And so I offer the following 10 points for your consideration. Number one, reword or eliminate the section that utilizes a snail mail address of 1500 Sullivan Road as the point of contact. It is clearly a folly to use the same address to contact trustees as that of the IMSA administration where it's housed. Never mind impossible to have mail arrive within 48 hours and be read by all trustees in advance of a meeting, when the agenda does not come out until the Saturday before the meeting held on the following Wednesday. Number two, make the meeting agendas widely available and not reliant upon the midnight searching of a parent adept at finding board docs. Send an e-blast announcing Board of Trustee meetings and include the agenda and a link to issue public comment, replete with the board policy that makes it seamless. Number three, alter the language of the clause that prohibits no more than 3 speakers on any given topic, each speaker at 5 minutes each, covering a total of 15 minutes. Grant to all of us some more respect that the parents of gifted children have a bit more to offer than a limit of 3 per topic in any given room. My comments are no more valuable than the person next to me. I would believe that some parents with education backgrounds are better equipped to comment on the benefits or demerits of mastery-based grading, or those with financial backgrounds could contribute to thoughts on the best use of the IMSA fund as examples. Number four, eliminate the 48-hour submission stipulation limit prior to meetings to encourage public comment up until an hour before the meeting, as some of the best public comments I have heard have been scrawled on the back of a napkin the day of or the night of a meeting. Number five, when today's agenda came out, there was no time, neither beginning nor end, even indicated for public comment. Placing public comment at the end of the meetings only offers merely a sense of win to these parent inputs. So it's seemingly imperative to move public comment to the start of the meetings, which has increasing value, particularly when a trustee vote is upcoming. Number 6, 7, and 8 all regard suggestions for live stream access, links, and tech usage before and after meetings, taking into consideration parents living beyond commuting confines, and will be elaborated upon in further follow-up email to Drs. Roach and Glazier, citing exemplary districts and their formats. Number 9, public speaking is consistently rated by teens and adults as one of the most fear and panic-inducing situations that arise in everyday scenarios. Add on top of that reality the awe-inspiring number of parents and guardians of IMSA students for whom English is a second language of fluency, gives me pause to realize the necessity of allowing for written and not just oral public comment. To that point, I would ask you to amend the current policy to specifically allow and instruct on the process for written as well as oral public comments, to reduce the potential obstacles to participation in future board meetings. Area public high schools have taken to publishing written public comments in spreadsheet format as an offering to display transparency for input into Board of Education and to aid in advocacy on particular topics should an inability to attend in person arise. Number 10, in an effort to reduce the reliance upon parents to educate parents on the Open Meetings Act, hold Open Meetings Act trainings for all parent committees at IMSA. Such is procedure in my homeschool district, and I can provide follow-up on the perfunctory details if so desired. These 10 points taken together would, in my opinion, go a long way to pave a path for successful communications from stakeholders within our IMSA community. It is my hope that by significantly amending public comment board policy BDD to allow for Board of Trustee meetings to be easily, readily, and reliably accessible to parents, you will bridge trust and continue to demonstrate that there is a genuine interest in hearing from parents going forward in a hopeful new era at IMSA. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you very much for taking the time and appreciate all the comments. It clearly comes across as a lot of care and advocacy for your children and all the students at IMSA community. And you have the right to have high expectations of IMSA, and the board really appreciates your input, as critical as it might be. I've taken a lot of notes here, and this is helpful feedback to improve our processes. I have just a couple other things to say real quickly before we adjourn. One is just wanted to note again in the communications that Dr. Robinson has sent out or will be sending out include lots of updates about what's coming up, including the senior week in just 2 weeks. We're looking forward to that, especially to celebrate our class of 2021. And also want to encourage anybody who's interested in contributing to the Promise Program's endowment, so you can do that. I'm also looking forward to the graduation of the class of 2021 in person, and I'm looking forward to being there on Saturday, June 4th. All of our trustees are invited to attend, and I look forward to awarding diplomas again to our seniors. Dr. Robinson, anything else before we adjourn?
I believe Trustee Henderson.
Oh, it's Trustee Anderson. You have your hand raised?
I do. I'm sorry, Aaron, and I'm sorry, Dr. Robinson. I'm a new trustee, so forgive me for, I think this breach of point of order. I just don't understand how or in what forum or when we respond to the concerns of parents that have been elevated at this meeting. How do we intend to respond to them?
So we take the comments very seriously. The administration needs to get together and review processes and then make a proposal either internally or to the board if it is at the board level for policy changes. We're not prepared to respond on the spot.
Sure.
There's pretty good suggestions here, and that would be the process. Thanks for
Okay.
asking.
I just didn't even know that we committed to responding to the parents who were in attendance. I know we thanked them for their comments, but I didn't hear that we committed to responding in some forum or other. So now that I understand that that's how we will convene, we will collect their comments and then figure out a medium, an appropriate medium to respond. That's what it sounds like you're saying.
So I'm saying that Dr. Robinson is taking lots of notes, and he will meet with his cabinet and his team and determine if there's a good course of action. I'm not committing Dr. Robinson to anything. That's not the board's role. But we do, again, I want to emphasize that it's very important, not just for IMSA, but in a democracy, that there is input as critical as it is, so that IMSA can improve processes and outcomes. Does that make sense?
It does. Thank you.
Okay, great.
Trustee Brown has his hand up.
Trustee Eric Brown?
Yes, so I just wanted to clarify that I think it's also within our purview as the board to raise any of the issues that we might feel need to be resolved. And so if it's a board policy change that needs to be made, we can certainly initiate the process on that. And that it's not solely up to the administration to make recommendations to us. But I just want to clarify that we do have that power as well.
Yeah, thanks for adding that. Appreciate that. That's correct.
I'm sorry, Aaron, with that additional comment by Eric, that means that Dr. Robinson will go process these notes with his cabinet and administration and involve us as we engage and endeavor to respond. I.e., we're not ceding the responsibility of a response to the cabinet and administration. Is that right? I just want to clarify.
So the board there's two paths. The board can initiate something if it believes that it should, and Dr. Robinson, as the interim president, can also initiate. Those are the two paths.
I see.
And I'd be happy to talk with you more online about how we've done that in the past.
Please, thank you. Sorry for the interruption.
Okay. Thank you very much. I want to say again, a big thank you to our facilities folks who made this possible. There's a lot of work that goes on before a meeting. I want to say thanks to our tech crew who've also done a lot of preparation ahead of time. Thanks to our world language department who's done a lot of very thoughtful work and experimentation, especially during distance learning. And thank you to the staff again for a tremendous amount of work that's taken place. Looking forward to senior week and looking forward to our returning to working and learning plan and seeing students here in this auditorium and elsewhere at IMSA in August. With that, could I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Okay, and Tracy, could you do a roll call vote, please?
Yes. Olszewski Cabelius,
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Goddard,
Yes.
Kersey,
Yes?
Henderson. Anderson,
Yes.
Roach.
Yes.
We're adjourned.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, everyone, for this important meeting.